Hi, I'm Anthony Fogarty, and in today's episode we're going to be editing a picture I took of an A400 at Birmingham Airport. Let's get into the edit. So first of all, as you can see, it's quite a dark shot, so what we'll do first, we'll get the crop out of the way. So I normally like a letterbox 16 by 9 crop on these things, and you'll notice because I've chopped off part of the wing there, I'm going to sort of crop in on the plane a little bit just to sort of make it a bit more symmetrical. So if we just bring those edges in a bit, yeah, that looks fairly impactful. Just bring that up a little bit, and that's typical of the sort of way I work. Obviously you can't always fill the frame with every shot that you take, so I tend to get the crop out of the way first. I always use landscape colour profile, just no reason, just the one I prefer. So we'll get that one on. There we go, that's good. Next is white balance. Now this was a bit tricky. It was quite a bit of a atmospheric evening, shall we say. There was sun poking through the clouds, but it was quite a stormy evening really. So we'll go with an auto white balance. Yeah, so that makes things quite warm, which it was that evening. Let me just drag that down a little bit. Let's try 7100. Okay, yeah, that's closer to what I remember. That's fine. Let's have a look at spot removal. Okay, so we'll use the spot removals here if anyone's unsure, and then you can visualise any spots with this little tick box down here. And from what I can see, background looks fairly clean. It's good to know that my sensor hasn't got that many spots on it, so that's good. So I'll move on to the next bit. We'll go through the basics now. I normally start with auto, and then I'll work from there just to see what it's trying to do. And you see there with auto, it's obviously brought up the exposure, which is great because I can see the actual aircraft now. But on the flip side, it means that the clouds are more blown out and there's less detail in the background. So we'll just work with that a little bit. We'll just bring the exposure down a tad. And I've got a trick to sort of increase the dynamic range of the shot, which I'll show you in a bit. Right, let's bring up the blacks a little bit so they're not clipping. Let's bring down the whites a bit as well so it's not overexposed. Right, that's great. That I think should do it. I do know that the shadows on the jet are quite pronounced, but like I said, I've got a trick that I'm going to use to try and improve that situation. So next is texture, and obviously these are all global adjustments, so this is bringing texture to the whole image. So again, it will bring texture in the jet, the aircraft, and it will also bring texture into the clouds as well. A little bit of clarity, and just a tad of dehaze for now. So there we go. Okay. So the problem we have, if I just zoom in there, if I now bring the shadows right up, you can see already how much noise that's going to bring into the image. You can see it's really quite noisy there. Now, if you post it on social media or whatnot, that's probably going to be fine. But if you ever wanted to print the image, then you're going to be struggling. So let's just bring that back to what it was, the shadows. So what I will do, let me just sharpen up the image first. So we use the masking tool. So if you hold down Option and bring up the masking tool, as you can see there, that's gonna go up to about 70. Yeah, no, that's probably a bit far. 65. Yeah, so that'll give enough on the jet. I keep saying jet, aircraft, to sharpen up. And I tend to aim around 60 or 70 for sharpening. Now that will just make sure that the sharpening we've applied is to the subject only and not to the background. which is always useful. A little bit of noise reduction, because like I said, we already do have a bit of noise in the image because we've already brought out some of the shadows, so just 20 or so on that will be fine. So what I now do, this is the trick I was talking about. So I'll add a radial filter, a radial mask onto this, so I'll just cover over the whole jet. Keep saying jet, it's not jet. Aircraft. Like so. I'll just drag that down a little bit because it's feathered at the edges. So what we'll do, we'll come down and we'll invert that radial filter so it's only affecting things inside of that circle, and then we'll go for a luminance mask on it, and if we show the mask, then there you go. So that's just a luminance mask for the whole thing. Now you can use this range of the luminance mask here, so we can affect either the darker parts, which for us would be the aircraft in this instance. So let me just show you that. So if we drag that slider down, you'll see that the mask now is only affecting the airframe, and it's not affecting the sky in the background whatsoever, which is what we want. Obviously, if you've got an image where that you want to try and affect a white plane on a dark background, then just go the other way with the range, and you'll see there that it'll affect. You'll see there in this image it's affecting the background, but if you've got a plane that's lighter than the background, then it will go the opposite way for you. So let's just bring that back. So I normally go about 10-15 or so, that should be enough. So if we uncheck this box, that keeps the luminance mask there, but it means that we're not looking at it. There we go. And so all we're going to be looking at now is the effects that the luminance mask has. Now one of the tricks I use, obviously I'll bring up the shadows a bit because obviously we know the shadows are quite pronounced on this jet, so we'll bring them up to about 15 or so. There we go, that's fine. A bit of contrast because of what we're about to do next. Now what I do is I offset dehaze. Now you've probably never heard of this before, but it's a trick that I use for high dynamic range images like this. So I will introduce haze to the subject, so bringing it down into a minus value. So if we go for say minus 50, okay, so that's introduced haze to that part of the image, okay. And if we press done, I think that'll do. We've already got texture of 30, clarity, that's fine. It's just adding that to the airframe. So if we have a look in there, it hasn't introduced much more noise. It's certainly less noise than what we would have done if we had shadows. Sorry, if we'd up to the shadows instead. So what I'm going to do now to offset that is increase the dehaze on the entire image, so it'll offset what I've done to just the airframe, if you know what I mean, and you'll see that here. So if I bring the dehaze up to say 40, 45, now you can see what that's done is it's emphasised the detail in the cloud behind, and it's also balanced out what we did to the jet to the aircraft in the first place. And it hasn't brought in much more noise at all. So what I'll do, I'll just go back into the radial filter, just select it, just bring up the shadows a tad more. Maybe I'll just bring up the exposure a tad, not much. Yeah, I think that'll do. Don't want to go too crazy. Yeah. And there we have it. That's our final edit. I think we've done everything that we need to. Just always good to check. One thing I always forget and I end up doing at the end, which causes the computer a problem because it has to go back and do it all, is just enable profile corrections, which will give you the specific corrections for that lens, and obviously remove any chromatic aberration. And then the image is ready to be exported and then uploaded for Instagram, Facebook, whatever else that you need. That pretty much sums up the edit there. And if you want to see sort of the before and after, there we go. That was what it was like before. and that's what it's like after the edit. Obviously there's quite a lot to take in there. You can obviously try this out on your own images, but I hope you found it useful. It's a trick that I've learned. I learnt it during my landscape photography days, but it's worked really well for me, especially with images like this that are so dark and there's a massive dynamic range there, and it helps to rescue those images. So yeah, as I say, I hope you found that useful. Please send me a message in the comments if you've got any questions. DM me on Instagram. On Instagram I am Anthony_Fogarty_Aviation, which is where you'll find this image. And obviously please like and subscribe to the video, and yeah, hopefully I'll be bringing you some more videos like this to give you some tips on Lightroom with aviation photography. And hopefully as soon as this lockdown's done, we'll be out and about taking photos at bases and places like the Mac Loop as well. So yeah, like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Cheers.